Hi, this is Sue Jackson of the Book by Book blog, and I'm here with another Friday Reads in this week between Christmas and New Year's. This is kind of my favorite week of the year. I really like this period between the big holidays when, for me anyway, the focus is on looking back on the year past and looking forward into the new year, starting to tally up the books that I've read, the movies I watched, the TV shows I watched. I review TV and movies as well as books on my blog. So kind of summing up all that, but the rest of my life too, looking back at what my year was like and what I want the new year to be like. I just really like that. And it's kind of after the hecticness of the few days surrounding Christmas, it's also a nice little lull. I'm a freelancer, so I'm really never off or fully working. It's always, every day's a little bit of both, but other than keeping up, well, I'm not really even doing much with my blogs this week. I am keeping up with videos, but that's about it. So it also feels like a time to catch up. I just like this week. So anyway, on to what I'm reading. I am thoroughly enjoying Rabbit Cake by Annie Hartnett. Love this author. I got to meet her this year. Speaking of looking back at the year, I had read her novel Unlikely Animals for Booktopia, a weekend book event that I go to the first weekend in May in Vermont every year at the wonderful Northshire bookstore. So the booksellers there choose several books, well, usually like between 6 to 8 books, and invite the authors for the weekend. And it's a very low-key celebration of reading and books. The authors are right there with about 100 or so readers, and we're just all hanging out together all weekend, talking books. It's a blast. So Annie was one of the Booktopia authors this year, and Unlikely Animals was her featured novel. And so I read it for that. Absolutely loved it. It's just very warm. She has a talent for dealing with difficult topics with a sense of humor. So it's a very funny book, but it deals with the main character has a missing friend. It deals with suicide and death, but it's also laugh out loud funny. So I did get to meet Annie and talk to her about the book, ask all the questions I had. So she signed my book. On the title page, you can see she herself drew these little drawings. You can tell from the title that animals played a large role in the novel. And she gave when she signed it for me, she gave the rabbit a little speech bubble that says Booktopia. So really enjoyed that. So for my birthday this year, I had asked for other Annie Hartnett novels, and my husband got me Rabbit Cake. Well, I am enjoying it. I'm enjoying it so much. It's a completely different novel than Unlikely Animals in terms of plot, but it has that same tone, very warm-hearted, tackling some serious issues, but with a great sense of humor. So in Rabbit Cake, we've got a little girl narrator. She's 10 when the book starts. Her name is Elvis. She was named after Elvis Presley because she shares his birthday, and her mom named her that. She has an older sister. The mother and the older sister sleepwalk. So right off the bat, this reminded me a little bit of Chris Bojalian's novel. I think it's just called The Sleepwalker. Though that was more mystery suspense. This is more about family. It's about grief. So right at the start of the novel, Elvis's mom, she has a habit of not only sleepwalking, but sleep swimming. They live right on the river. She is, in Alabama, she is an excellent swimmer. And so she does this so often that she and her husband both sleep in their bathing suits. So you can start to see, some of the sense of humor here. Usually when she gets up and leaves the house in the middle of the night, he goes with her and makes sure she's okay. He takes the dog, they sit on the bank and watch her sleep swim. And she's always been okay. Well, this time she wasn't. She managed to slip out of the house without anyone noticing, and she went sleep swimming in the river and got washed downstream. They didn't even find her for a while, and she died. So the novel is from the perspective of 10, 11, 12-year-old Elvis as she goes through the grieving process, trying to learn to navigate life without her mom. And from Elvis's perspective, you also get insight into how her father and her older sister are grieving. Everyone is struggling in their own ways, and you see that just beautifully spelled out for you. It's very warm-hearted. It's very funny despite the dark theme. And as with Unlikely Animals, the main character, Elvis, is just wonderful. You just love her right from the get-go. She is very precocious. She's really smart. Her mom was an animal biologist, and Elvis shares that passion for animals. It's a wonderful book. I'm really enjoying it. I should be able to finish by New Year's Eve so that I can start a new book on January 1st. So this is my last print book for 2023. As I'm saying that, you can probably see my eyes. I'm thinking, because it is possible I might squeeze in a middle grade graphic novel. I have several on my shelf and on my iPad that I'd like to get to. So I might squeeze in a graphic novel, but this is my last big print novel. And on audio, I think my last book of the year, again, I could try to squeeze in a really short middle grade novel. Not sure I'm going to do that or not. I've been listening to a lot of audios, so I'm behind on my podcasts. So I might just catch up on podcasts for the last few days of the year. Anyway, my last audiobook of the year was Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs. So this allowed me to fit in one last classic this year and meet my goal of reading 6 classics. Obviously, this is a very well-known story, though I was only familiar with the movie versions, and particularly the Disney version. That came out when my younger son was a toddler. And if you have kids, you know how kids that age, toddler, preschool era, they get hooked on one movie that they want to watch over and over again. For my older son, it was Lion King. For my younger son, it was Tarzan. So I've seen the Disney version of Tarzan countless times, literally. We have the soundtrack. I could probably recite much of the movie to you. So it was very interesting to read the classic, the original material that all of the Tarzan pop culture that followed came from. Now, it was written a long time ago, and set in Africa, so of course there is some cringy stuff there about the natives, the black savages. Though some characters, it's interesting because some characters see the Black natives that live there as savages. Others are a little more enlightened in their views. So it depends on the character, I think. Overall, though, I very much enjoyed listening to it. It was a very riveting story, and it's interesting in the foreword and the afterword to hear about the impact that this book had on pop culture at the time. Of course, we're aware of everything that came later, not just the Disney feature, but you know, back in the day, there was a TV show about Tarzan, which I remember watching as a kid. Countless movies about Tarzan. Even Disney has redone it over the years. But also, at the time that the book was published, it made a huge splash and was a pop culture phenomenon at the time. So there are 24 Tarzan books in all. And I enjoyed this, but when it ended, I was like, it's gonna end right there? So he wrote 23 sequels to this. The story goes on. So, I mean, it comes to a conclusion, but it wasn't the conclusion I expected. And it definitely left me wanting to read more, which I guess is why it was so popular at the time. So very much enjoyed reading the classic Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs. So that's what I am reading right now and how I am ending my reading year. I would love to hear what you're reading this weekend. How are you wrapping up your reading year? Let me know in the comments down below.